What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we start off by recapping and discussing Mike Tyson's draw against Roy Jones Jr. and Jake Paul's second-round knockout of Nate Robinson. Then we move over to the NBA, where we give our winners and losers of the 2020 NBA offseason as the season gets ready to kick off in just a few short weeks. Finally, we jump over to the NFL, where we break down the crazy matchup between the Chiefs and Buccaneers and debate where the performance of Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes ranks among NFL history. Plus, we have a very candid discussion about how the NFL has failed protecting teams and players during the COVID-19 pandemic and what they need to do to make sure they finish out the season. All that and much more coming your way right now. All right, Nick, we are back 2 weeks later. We feel refreshed, right? Oh, I saw you for an entire week.
Yeah. We spent some time together. It was good to see some family, some friends. It was a great week. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and great holiday. Hopefully you got some good deals. Hopefully you got some good gifts for the upcoming holidays. It's that time of the year again, and it's still 20.
I hope a lot of you got to spend time with family as well. I know that's very important during these times. Some of our friends weren't able to do so, and we understand with everything that's going on. That's not the possibility for everybody. So if you didn't get to spend time with family, don't sweat it. You're gonna see them later on. Stay safe, stay healthy. Kick back, relax, enjoy our show. We're right here for you. We're going to provide as much entertainment for you as humanly possible.
Unfortunately, the one thing that doesn't seem to stop with the holidays is COVID. And that seems to be the biggest headline of the last week or so in most sports. I mean, it is just unreal, the impacts that it has had on sports across the world, and how it's really having a mental impact on people as well. I mean, we'll get into it, but it is unbelievable how this is continuing to disrupt sports and disrupt our lives each and every day.
For sure. And I want to take a moment. I know a lot of people are sick and tired of hearing about COVID and the pandemic and everything that you need to do, everybody badgering you like you're a child. You know what needs to get done. Stay distant from each other. Wear masks when you need to. Don't cause an issue when it's unnecessary. Don't feel the need to buck the system just because you want to feel like a rebel. Just do what you can to protect yourself, protect others, love each other. Let's get through this together. And we have seen a lot of people, a lot of families that have suffered through this, and we want to do our part, just like the athletes have done their part. For most of them, at least, have done their part. We want to do the same here. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No. I think let's just get into it.
Sure. So, we were kind of going back and forth pre-show and just talking about, what was so exciting while we were gone. Well, all the hubbub was Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson and Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. And I think that is the perfect place to start. So right now, let's break down the Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson fight. Jake Paul fought NBA star Nate Robinson in this kind of interesting matchup. Again, 2020 is the only year I think you would watch a YouTuber and a former NBA All-Star going after each other in a boxing ring, no?
Yeah, I mean, it is. This is a kind of a great encapsulation of what 2020 has been. It's just the complete. It is so far beyond what you would ever expect, and now you've just come to like accept it as the norm.
Yeah.
It really is something.
It is, and just to break it down for you guys, just so you know exact, if you didn't get to watch the fight, if you didn't buy the pay-per-view, don't worry, we got you covered. We took care of that for you. So just to break it down quickly, the fight only lasted 1.5 rounds, but into the second round. The first round got off to a fast start. Both guys came out, guns blazing. They were ready to go. They were roaring. Jake Paul put Nate Robinson on the mat twice, knocked him down, and one of them, Nate Robinson thought was an illegal shot. The referee went over to the video replay. They saw that it was a legal shot. He thought he got hit in the back of the head. It was completely legal. They said they deemed it a clean hit, and they both moved forward. Robinson got up both times off the mat, but he was laboring a bit. I think he had gotten hit by something he wasn't expecting. Then comes round two, and Jake Paul knocked Nate Robinson down to the mat yet again. He stayed down for a while, was able to get back up before the count, and then he received immediate medical attention. So I think Jake Paul here knew that he had Nate Robinson on the ropes, if you will. And then all of a sudden, Jake Paul just hit him with a few more shots, and then he hit him one more time in the face, and you get that infamous shot I'm sure most of you have seen by now. Nate Robinson falling face first onto the mat and just going lights out, cold knockout. He is done. The match is over. Jake Paul wins his second boxing match and second win by knockout. Not for obviously we're talking about a YouTube star versus a former NBA All-Star, but right here it was an interesting boxing match to take a look at, because Jake Paul, for somebody who's not known for boxing, looks pretty polished in the ring.
Well, yeah, and I think that comes from previous experience. He has another fight under his belt. He's learned from his brother Logan, who's had multiple fights in the ring. So he's been there. He's done this. This is Nate Robinson's first time, and I think another factor that really needs to be taken into account is the reach advantage for Jake Paul. He is much taller. He has the 3-inch height advantage on Nate Robinson, and then he has a much longer reach advantage than Nate Robinson, which really helped him in this fight. So coupling the experience together with the reach advantage really plays a factor, and this is a lesson for everybody who thinks that they could just step into a boxing ring, and think that this is an easy sport, they can do it. Nate Robinson is a professional athlete, and he just got his ass whooped by a YouTuber. And this is you gotta be humble when you get into the sport, otherwise you're going to be humbled, and that's exactly what Nate Robinson was. And now he's kind of tainted his reputation. You used to look at Nate Robinson and think of him jumping and dunking over Dwight Howard in the dunk competition. Now you're going to think of him getting knocked out and landing face first on the mat.
I mean, it's kind of fitting, right, that he lost so blatantly and so terribly while wearing Knicks colors. I think that is the only silver lining to this whole matchup, is that he was, donning that gaudy orange and blue, and all of a sudden he's face first on the canvas, and Jake Paul's celebrating around him. I think that was the perfect snapshot that I needed to send to all my Knicks fans friends and say, if you thought the future looked bright, Nate Robinson definitely left a bad taste in your mouth. But to your point, you said that not everybody can do this, right? Not everybody is a professional. Not everybody even professional athletes, they are not meant to box. Well, apparently not everybody feels that way, because Minnesota Timberwolves forward Evan Turner tweeted out after the fight that he wants to fight Jake Paul in the boxing ring. He wants to be the next matchup. Now, it's probably a little far-fetched, seeing as though he's still an active player in the NBA. Yeah. He has zero boxing experience whatsoever. But it would be very interesting, because you talked about the height advantage and the reach advantage for Jake Paul. Jake Paul is 6'1", had a decent
reach advantage,
arm reach, or just an arm reach in general, right?
Yep.
Evan Turner is 6'6" and weighs 220.
Yeah.
I think that would be quite like you went from Nate Robinson, who's 5'9", to Evan Turner, who's 6'6", and Jake Paul's somewhere in the middle there. I don't know if Jake Paul would even want to consider that fight, knowing that he's going to go in at a disadvantage.
Absolutely not. Jake Paul will never accept this fight. I mean, this is why you have weight classes, right? Jake Paul is not going to become a heavyweight out of nowhere, and I don't expect Evan Turner, who's in the middle of his career, to just drop 40 pounds to make Jake Paul's weight class. It's just that's not how this is going to work. So this fight obviously could never happen. And you know what? If more celebrities and athletes in other sports want to get into boxing, then do it at your own risk. You now know full well what you're getting into. Looking at Logan Paul, KSI, Jake Paul, Nate Robinson, all these guys who have done it, and you'll know that you're gonna have to put in the work. Otherwise, you're gonna pay the price. I just don't. It's entertaining, don't get me wrong, but is it really worth it? Like, what are you really benefiting from this? What are you really getting from it?
No, for sure. And I think Evan Turner, he might have just been tweeting. He might have been feeling himself. Maybe he reached the end of the bottle and he was ready to go after it right then and there. But the fact remains that I doubt this happens. I do want to point out, though, that Jake Paul called out two people after the fight, saying those are the people that he wants to fight. First, he called out Conor McGregor, wanting him in a boxing match, which would be very interesting to me, just for the sheer fact that we've seen Conor McGregor in a boxing match, and it looks terrible. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Jake Paul go after him.
And then
hold on. And the second person that he called out was Dylan Dennis, and the problem I have with Jake Paul is that now he's starting to feel himself. He is a 22-year-old kid trying to face off against some of the world's best fighters. I think this would be very interesting. I might want to see the McGregor. I think the McGregor Jake Paul matchup has much more name value to it than Dylan Dennis does, but would you want to see either one of these?
Absolutely not. That's a slap in the face for Conor McGregor. He has his eyes on Manny Pacquiao. I don't think he's going to want to drop that low and fight Jake Paul, especially if he's not fighting for at least $100 million. So
I don't think Senator Pacquiao's coming out of retirement anytime soon.
Hey, it looks like that fight might happen in the future, but there is absolutely no way Conor McGregor is stepping in the boxing ring unless it's against Pacquiao or Mayweather again. He is still one of the best lightweights in the UFC. I don't think he's going to stoop that low and fight a former YouTuber turned celebrity. It's just, that's not, the world may be crazy, but I don't think it's come to that.
Who knows? 2020 might be just the beginning of what we get.
Oh, no. Don't tell me this is an entire decade.
It starts with 2020 and ends 10 years later.
Yeah, this is
all right. Well, nonetheless, this was an interesting fight. I think it deserves some recognition. I wanted to definitely bring it up. It was a little more of a fun topic for us rather than a serious one. Moving to a more serious one, but still a fun one nonetheless. Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. was the headline on this card. They were the main event. This was what was hyped up, ready to go. Everybody who bought the pay-per-view was looking to see what I believe 52-year-old Mike Tyson was
54.
able to do. 54. And I have to say, it disappointed. It disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To the point where people who thought this was a hoax are now bragging that the whole thing was set up, and let me just break it down for you. Mike Tyson challenged Roy Jones Jr. to a boxing match. That it was an exhibition. It was an 8-round fight. But the issue is that there was no winner that was announced, and the reason for that is that when once the fight was over, all 8 rounds were done. They went to the judges' scoring cards and they deemed it a draw. Now, I think that is one of the most uh, humiliating things for the sport of boxing, just for the simple fact that there's no recap, there's no rematch here. This is not something that's going to affect either one's legacy. This is not going to do anything for either of them. And to deem it a draw was just a slap in the face to anybody who bought this pay-per-view.
Oh, it absolutely was. And to think that most people who are watching this fight never saw Mike Tyson. That's the one thing. People always talk about Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. and all the things they did in their prime. And you were hoping to get a glimpse of that. And you got absolutely none of it. And this was just horrific. You could have paid $0, turned on ESPN Plus, watched Anthony Smith, and watched a much better fight that only lasted a minute and 30 seconds. I mean, it's unbelievable how painful this fight was to watch, how bad it made them look, and now you make the current generation think that these guys were overhyped in their prime, if this is what they're putting out at this age. You know, they put out those hype videos of them working out. They looked great. People were saying they looked like themselves in their heyday. And then you come to the fight night and they just completely disappoint. They both fall on their face. It's such a dud. And there's even if they wanted a rematch, who's going to pay for it? Who wants to pay another $50 to watch these two fight again? You've seen it once, you've seen it twice. Like it doesn't. No one's going to want to see it. I don't think they're going to want to go through it. They're probably exhausted still after that, going 8 rounds.
I think that's the issue, right? Is that Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., they put out these clips and everybody's like, oh, they look great. Yeah, until they have to fight 8 rounds, and then they're like, the fuck, I retired 20 years ago for a reason. Like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe they were just putting all their energy into those hype videos, and afterward they just took the rest of the day off. Let's just put in two minutes on the bag. Work your hardest, and then that's it. You can go home for the day.
Throw it up for the gram and call it a day.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Let's try to milk as much money as we can.
Fair. This is what confuses me the most, and I'm just going to go through some of the numbers with you guys. Just because it boggles my mind how we got to this point. But the way it went was that the last round was voted 9-10 for Tyson by 2 judges, and then 10-9 for Tyson. 9-10 for Jones in the final round, and then 10-9 for Tyson by 1 judge. And then the breakdown was 76-76 by Chad Dawson, 79-73 by Christy Martin, and 76-80 by Vinny Pazinza. So, I mean, again, these judges, I don't understand exactly what they were looking for here, but there's not going to be a legacy fight. There's not going to be something that happens post this fight, this exhibition, to say, let's do it again. Let's go round 2. I just don't expect this to happen. On top of the fact that we look at some of the numbers for each fighter. Let's take a look at Mike Tyson. He threw 193 total punches and landed 67, which is 35%. He threw 56 jabs, landed 10, and threw 137 power punches and landed 57. He landed 57 power punches at 42% clip. On the other side, Roy Jones, he threw 236 punches and only landed 37, 9 of which were jabs, 28 of which were power punches. 151 power punches and 85 jabs total for Roy Jones Jr. He hit at a 16% clip. 16! What was he doing? Just swinging at the air and hoping to God that he landed a chin? Yeah. I don't exactly understand what the hell was going on here.
No, yeah, these numbers are a joke, and they tell the entire story. This was a boring fight. It didn't show up. It didn't stand up to the hype, and you're left disappointed. These numbers are all you need to know. And I applaud every single person who opted to not watch this fight because you saved your time, the most valuable thing that everyone has. And everybody who paid for this not only wasted their money, but wasted all of that time watching this fight. I mean,
Right.
this is
And
such.
and I understand it was for charity. I
Yeah.
understand that this was about more than just the fight. But the fact remains that Tyson clearly won this fight, and the judges quote unquote robbed him by calling it a draw. I don't understand the what their thinking
Right,
process
but
was
does
for
it even
calling it a
matter?
draw.
Does it even matter what the outcome was? That it was a draw? This fight was a dud. Like the amount of punches, the amount of landed
I still like to
punches.
see the correct outcome being called. There's no reason to call it a draw. That's what I said
Listen,
before. It's
it
just a
doesn't
slap
do
in the face
any.
to any
It's
viewer.
it's a smack in the face, but really, what does it do for either from nothing? Whether they win or lose, it does nothing. So leave it as a draw. They can both keep their dignity. It wasn't a pleasant fight to watch for anybody. It probably
Well,
wasn't. I just.
I can say one positive thing. The only positive thing, besides the fact that this raised a ton of money for charity, is the fact that Snoop Dogg sounded great as the announcer. Uh, he is one of those guys that can just step in and do whatever he wants anytime he wants, and I like him ringside. I feel like he should do that more often.
And it sounds like, according to Mike Tyson, that him and Snoop may have had a little party beforehand, uh, smoking a little bit and getting a little loose before the fight. So maybe that's another reason why Mike Tyson's numbers are a little down. Man.
His numbers were down because he was high. All right. So, with that being said, no, I think this was just an abysmal performance overall. Even Teddy Atlas said that Mike Tyson had won this. I'm not really sure exactly what happened at the judges' table, but nonetheless, I don't expect this to happen again. I think Mike Tyson is definitely resting for the next week and a half before he gets out of bed, and same for Roy Jones Jr. It was a fun excitement. It was something fun to talk about. I will tell you this: if Curtis Blade hadn't tested positive and was able to fight Derek Lewis, my entire attention span would have been focused on that specifically.
100%.
So, with that being said, I think it's time to move over to the NBA. All right, so we have a whole lot to get to throughout the NBA. The NBA season is right around the corner. Preseason starts December 11th, and the regular season will start December 22nd. We'll get into exactly what all of that means moving forward, but before the preseason starts, we have this thing called the offseason. And the offseason has winners and losers. And we are here to give you those winners and losers based on the draft, based on free agency, based on trades that have been made, taking all of that information and just spewing it back out to you guys, saying, okay, this is where we think each team which teams progressed, which teams regressed, and what players are in better situations moving forward. So, with that being said, Nick, why don't you give us your 3 NBA offseason winners?
So my 3 offseason winners were the Los Angeles Lakers, Atlanta Hawks, and the Miami Heat. And quickly, my breakdown is Lakers' biggest signing, Montrezl Harrell. I think the signing of Montrezl Harrell solidifies them as finals candidates, and I think they should have the highest odds of winning it all this season once again. On top of that, you get Dennis Schroeder, and who's going to replace Rajon Rondo, who is a better Rajon Rondo, a younger Rondo. You re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's going to help you off the bench. That's a great signing. And then, last of all, you add Marc Gasol, who is going to be great. He is, in my opinion, better than Dwight Howard, and I think that he is going to help them significantly. This is a team that is much scarier than last season. Yes, they have not signed Anthony Davis yet, but we all know that he will be signing back with them any day now.
Yeah, I mean Anthony Davis, he's going back to LA, and just to hammer home the fact Marc Gasol is by far and away much better than Dwight Howard was. Dwight Howard is a rim protector. He is an outmoded type of center that really can't excel in this league anymore. He has to sit underneath the basket to be and he's a detriment on offense most of the time. The fact remains that Marc Gasol can stretch the floor. He hits the three ball at about a 29% clip, which is really, really good in and of itself, let alone at the 5 position. He plays the pick and roll really well, which is going to work well with some of the players like Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Dennis Schroeder handling the ball is going to help a lot, give some rest. They're going to have players that can give rest to LeBron and AD. I think they got much stronger. And then Montrezl Harrell on top of it is just the icing on the cake. Not only did you sign the 6th man of the year, but you also took him away from your arch rival who you share a stadium with in the LA Clippers.
Yeah. And so and then, the Atlanta Hawks, they drafted Onyeka Okongwu, who is going to be amazing with Trae Young. You have you signed Bogdan Bogdanovic, which is an amazing sign. You got Bogdan. I see what you're getting at. I see what you got me. I'll give you that one. You got me.
I had to.
You got Rajon Rondo, who's going to be a great on-ball guard off the bench. Danilo Gallinari, who adds size. He's a great three shot for you. He's going to be a great add to that team. And then you add Chris Dunn, who's going to add some much needed depth off the bench as well. This team, I think, has improved the most out of any team this offseason, and I expect a lot from this team. I can't wait to see how Trae Young does with weapons around him finally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've always been a big Trae Young fan.
No, yeah, I've loved what Trae Young's about. He was the underdog coming out of school. I mean, he excelled in March Madness the year before he was drafted, and that's really what put him on the map. And then he was drafted, and then he was traded for Luka Doncic from the Mavericks. It was they kind of just swapped picks, and it was already done. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it worked out for both teams, and Trae Young is thriving in Atlanta, and he is going to eat this season. And
they're building around him. Bogdanovic was the prized possession, it seemed, throughout the offseason, because they had the quote unquote sign and trade deal with the Milwaukee Bucks until he said, I didn't agree to sign with you to get traded there. Yep. There's no shot. And then he ends up signing away from the Sacramento Kings, doesn't go to the Bucks, and the Bucks had already banked on him coming to their team, and that whole thing falling apart. We'll get to that later. Danilo Gallinari, one of the most underrated, disrespected players in the NBA, from his time with the Knicks to the Nuggets and then to the Clippers. Everything he's been able to do, he is a role model on and off the floor. He plays great defense. He's a very long, big, and strong body, and he hits the three-pointer extremely well. He does exactly what you want him to do, and I think this is a huge piece, a very underrated piece for them specifically.
Yeah, and finally, the Miami Heat, they re-signed Goran Dragic, which was absolutely necessary. It was huge for them. They solidify getting their pieces back from last season, and they get to make another push to the finals. And then on top of it, you add Avery Bradley, and then you draft Precious Achiuwa. I probably said his name wrong, but Precious Achiuwa, he is going to be a great add for them, who's going to help them He fits their system. He's going to work well with Bam Adebayo. He's kind of a shorter four, but he has a really long reach. Who's going to help them a lot. Avery Bradley is a really nice signing for them. He's going to add very necessary defensive help on to the team, and they're going to now be able to compete even more with the Boston Celtics, the Raptors, and the Bucks in the East. So this team is looking a lot more solid. Plus, you have all the guys that are returning with more experience under their belt. I think that the Miami Heat are the team to watch out for in the East.
Yeah, I like Tyler Hero. I like Duncan Robinson and Jimmy Butler. I don't like them when I play them, but other than that, I like them nonetheless. They're really good players. Pat Riley and what's the coach in Miami? What's his name?
Eric Spoelstra.
Eric Spoelstra. They understand what it takes to get it done. They've been there. They've done it before. And albeit you can say they did it with LeBron James and Chris Bosh, but they know what it takes to build a great team, and they're doing that. They're rounding it out with great depth, 3-and-D pieces. They're drafting well. They're adding everything that Jimmy Butler wants around him. I'm happy. These Miami Heat, they're no joke, and they got stronger after just making it to the finals. They have to be considered a top, if not the top team in the Eastern Conference
for sure.
All right, let me give you my 3 winners just quickly. The Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have just absolutely blown the doors off of literally everybody. They had an impressive performance in the bubble. They didn't lose a single game. I don't know how they still missed the playoffs, but that's a different discussion. They acquired Chris Paul, retained Dario Saric, and came up with deals for Jay Crowder, Javon Carter, and Damian Jones. On top of the fact, Devin Booker is already an all NBA player who's now going to play alongside Chris Paul. You have DeAndre Ayton at the center position. Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are the key pieces that are the young pieces that are going to help Phoenix in the middle of that rotation. And Monty Williams is an incredible coach. Look for the Phoenix Suns to be a dominant presence at I would say toward the middle to back end of the Western Conference division, but they can make a whole hell of a lot of noise in the postseason if you don't give them the credit they deserve.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a team that, they won out in the bubble, and they didn't make the playoffs. But this is a team that is absolutely they have improved tremendously, and you're going to see this team really start to compete and get better. They're not going to obviously compete with the Lakers this season and make a run for the finals, but this is a team that has made leaps and bounds improvements upon what they had the previous season.
And nobody says they have to be the ones to take out the Lakers. If a team like Denver or the Clippers or somebody else is able to take the Lakers out in the playoffs, Phoenix could have an easier run to the the Western Conference Finals, the playoffs. I mean, don't sleep on them, because the more you sleep on them, the more they're going to thrive, and they are no joke. I'm telling you. Now you gave scoring options to Devin Booker. Chris Paul can handle commanding that offense. Devin Booker doesn't have to be on ball all the time. You just opened up this offense massively. James Jones, the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, has done an incredible job, and he deserves a lot of recognition for their quick turnaround that they've been able to pull off. My second winner for the NBA offseason is the Portland Trailblazers. Neil O'Shea, who is the GM in Portland, has made some very interesting moves to help Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and give them some reinforcements moving forward. They were able to keep Carmelo Anthony, which is a huge opportunity for them. On top of the fact they added Enes Kanter, who they used to have and thrived with them, backing up who's their center? I can't think of his name. Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic.
Yes.
And then they added one of the best six men in the league, Robert Covington from the Houston Rockets. On top of that, they added Rodney Hood, Derek Jones Jr., and Harry Giles. These players, again, are very deep. They provide a lot of shooting depth, a lot of defensive depth. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are not going to be asked to do all of the scoring. They're going to be able to rely on their bench to hold leads and maybe close gaps while they're on the bench and do all sorts of things. Enes Kanter is one of the best offensive centers that we have in the NBA right now. Defensively speaking, there's a lot left to be desired, but that's not what he's going to be asked to do, especially coming off the bench. He's going to be there to give them more of an offensive presence. And if they want, which they used to do a couple years ago when Enes Kanter was there, they can play Kanter and Nurkic at the same time, and you have two centers combating the Marc Gasol, Anthony Davis combination that the Lakers have. And that is definitely something that will provide fits for the Lakers moving forward. So the Portland Trailblazers and Neil Olshey have definitely done a ton of work to get back to where they wanted to be.
Yeah, and I kind of put them in the same boat as the Phoenix Suns. I think that this is a team that is a fringe playoff team that has enough talent to make it. But, it's going to be interesting to see how these guys are communicating with each other. And it's really not a lot of outside additions that they're having. It's a lot of re-signing who they had and bringing players back who they previously had. So in the situation we're in, where there is really no offseason, you're going to have a couple preseason games, and then we're going to get into the regular season. That this is the type of offseason that it's going to work out for them. This is going to bode well, and they're going to thrive with, because the chemistry is there. They just got to rekindle it.
For sure. I think that the Portland Trailblazers are in a much better position than they were a year ago. I think they realized that they had some significant holes that Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum just couldn't handle by themselves, because it's too much. Just to have two players is not enough. You need to be able to put pieces around them. I think the depth was definitely lacking. As much as Dame time is something special to watch, he needs other pieces to get to that point in the game, let alone in the season. And then my third winner isn't a team necessarily. It's power forward, small forward, Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward opted out of his player option, which was a shock to almost everybody, because nobody thought that he would have the market that he ended up having, simply because of the fact that he dealt with so many injuries in his time in Boston. He didn't look like the player that came out of Utah and out of Butler. So I think even with Brad Stevens as the head coach and trying to force feed him the ball, it just never seemed to work out in Boston. And that's not on him necessarily. I think it was just a mixture of Jason Tatum is a much better scorer than Gordon Hayward is. The slashing type is held down by Jaylen Brown. I think that he was more of a redundancy and more of a luxury to have, if you will. So he opts out of his player option, and it was a little puzzling at first, because knowing that he was owed $24.5 million over one season, I didn't think he was going to get that. Not only did he get $24.5 million, he signed a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets gave him $30 million. Sorry, they gave him $30 million a year. And I can't fathom why they thought that bringing in an aged and oft-injured Gordon Hayward was the move that they needed to make. But this is why I call him the winner, not necessarily the team, because he's going to provide a lot of support, and he's going to be the slasher that he once was, or what he was expected to be in Boston. But he's much older. He got a fully guaranteed $120 million over the next 4 years. He becomes the I guess second brand name star on the Charlotte Hornets under the tutelage of Michael Jordan. I really don't see how Gordon Hayward loses here. Needless to say, I don't think the Hornets made the greatest decision here. I'm a little surprised, and the fact that he was hellbent on trying to get back to Indiana, where he was born and raised, and then ended up opting himself to choose Charlotte because he couldn't get Danny Ainge couldn't get a deal done with the Pacers, so he decided to take matters into his own hands, take the deal that was left for him by Charlotte, and said, "Sayonara, I'm taking it." I'm taking my bags and leaving.
Yeah. It's a great job by Gordon Hayward finessing the system, finessing the Charlotte Hornets, and I mean, he's gonna add some help to this team. Obviously, they drafted LaMelo Ball, so he's going to be the star, and Gordon Hayward's definitely gonna help him out. If Gordon Hayward can stay healthy, he's a great player, so they're definitely getting a good value here if he's available. But that's the thing. Will he be available? And that's something that we need to watch out for. This is a great job on Gordon Hayward's part, getting this deal done, securing more money than anybody ever expected him to get. I just I can't see that he's going to just, like, all those injury problems are just going to go away now that he's out of Boston. I can't see that happening. And this really doesn't set up with the lucrative contract that Charlotte gave him. This is really putting the future of the team in a bad spot, and it's putting LaMelo Ball, your future or your hopeful future star, in a very bad spot where there really aren't pieces around him where he can move the ball around, and it's really going to be a lot of attention focused on LaMelo and Gordon Hayward. So
yeah,
the team itself really dropped the ball here, but Gordon Hayward absolutely succeeded this offseason.
Of 100%. On the flip side, if you have winners of the offseason, that is only compounded by the fact that there's definitely losers or teams that didn't do exactly what they needed to do. And right now, I want to take a look at some of those losers. So, Nick, take us through who your NBA offseason losers were.
Yeah, and my biggest loser, and I think we both have this, the Milwaukee Bucks. This team has it completely imploded, really. This team, who was once looked at as the team to beat in the East, is now just a kind of a middle of the pack team with a big star on the roster. You add Drew Holiday, but you give up so much for him. This is a guy that Giannis wanted. This was kind of one of his demands for him if he's going to stay. You got Drew Holiday, but at a tremendous cost. And then you add DJ Augustine, who's an aged guard who may add some help off the bench. I mean, he was putting up okay numbers in the last couple of years. This is a guy who, he's really not going to do anything for you, and he's really not a game changer. The Milwaukee Bucks are in a limbo situation right now, and I don't think that they clearly didn't make any improvements from last season. I think they got worse. I don't think that this is true competition for teams like Toronto or Miami or Boston anymore. I think that Milwaukee is towards the end of the playoff the playoff teams in the East, and I can't imagine that Giannis is happy with this at all. And with him with an expiring contract this season, if I'm him, I'd be looking to explore the open market and not being quick to re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I think he definitely needs to take a step back from the organization and take a look at his surrounding and say, is this where I want to be? Do I have the best possible team to win with, especially with the way that some of these teams in the East are starting to get younger? They're starting to build up. There is no Giannis outside of himself, and even LeBron James right now is not, I think, the caliber of Giannis's talent. I think that he is just he is a completely different specimen. LeBron James is his own player, and I don't want to, I don't want the LeBron James fans to just bombard me, but he has his own skill set, and he cannot do what Giannis can do, and vice versa. Giannis can't do what LeBron James can do. Not to say one's better than the other. I'm just saying that they are completely different players. The fact remains is that Giannis needs to take a hard look at what his market is going to be. Yes, Milwaukee's great, and it would be awesome for him to stay in such a small market and give them some notoriety that like he has been, but they need him more than he needs them. And I think he needs to come to that realization and say, maybe there is a better situation out there for me. Maybe I look at a team like the Golden State Warriors. Maybe I look at some of these other teams and say, can you utilize my services? Can you provide me the championship that I need? I mean, I've heard some interesting teams that have been thrown around. I just mentioned the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, the Toronto Raptors, the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks. Those are some of the teams that I have heard in the Houston Rockets. Those are some teams that if you just imagine what Giannis could do on any of those teams, outside of the Knicks, I think they are automatic championship contenders. And I don't know how you can get away with, if you're Giannis and you're the Bucks and you're looking at each other and saying, okay, Giannis, we need you to come back. And Giannis says back to them, you didn't do what I needed you to do, and I'm going to fall short yet another year. And the failed Bogdan situation is really going to come back to bite them, I think.
Oh, for sure. The Milwaukee Bucks are in a bad spot, and this is going to be a situation we're going to have to watch out for to see how he does with the pieces around him with very little offseason. I can't imagine this is going to go well for them.
I just want to reiterate what the Drew Holiday trade was, just so we have that on record here. But the New Orleans Pelicans traded for Drew Holiday. They traded Drew Holiday to the Bucks for Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, and 3 first-round picks. The Milwaukee Bucks don't have a first-round pick for like 6 out of the next 7 years or something like that, or 7 of the next 8 years, or something absolutely absurd. I think that is something noteworthy that not only will Giannis take note of, but free agents that are possibly looking to go there and other things that he's going to want to take a hard look at and say, this might not be the situation for me.
Yeah. My second team that completely lost this offseason, the Houston Rockets. This is a team that was in what looked to be full tank mode. They were going to trade off all of their assets, gather as much draft capital as possible so they could build up through the draft in the next few years. And it looked like they were doing a pretty decent job until they couldn't find trade partners for Russell Westbrook and James Harden. And it's not like there weren't suitors out there. Their demands were just outrageous. I mean, they could have gotten a haul of draft picks. They could have gotten some good depth pieces, but they refused. They wanted a big piece in return. They said to the Nets, hey, if you want Harden, we want Kyrie or KD. And that's just, how can you ask a team for that? Washington wanted to trade for Harden as well, and they wanted to trade John Wall for him, and they said no. I mean, that's a great piece that they could have traded for along with some draft capital. The Knicks wanted Russell Westbrook, but they were asking for an arm and a leg, and they gotta know the market that they're in. They gotta understand that you're getting some older players. Yes, they're still elite players, but they are not going to be performing at their prime levels for that much longer. And so with the value of these players deteriorating over time, the Houston Rockets had no idea what the value of their players actually was when everybody else knew what it was. And now they're stuck with 2 players who absolutely do not want to be there. You have a brand new head coach. You have a new general manager. This team is in such disarray. It's going to fall on its face, and you're going to make James Harden and Russell Westbrook look bad this season, and their draft and their trade value is going to drop significantly going into next offseason. The Houston Rockets are in bad shape moving forward.
Yeah. Besides it being so much of disarray, I believe that it just looked sloppy. I mean, the Houston Rockets, they fire Mike D'Antoni. That's how they start the offseason, right? They fire Mike D'Antoni. They fired the GM, and they wanted to basically bring in an entire new idea of how to play basketball, a different mindset, if you will. And James Harden and Russell Westbrook are part of the same philosophy that D'Antoni was bringing, is, the 7-second offense, if you will. The shoot the three as soon as you get an open shot, and we'll have one big guy who can rebound and pass it right back out. And that's why they had the Robert Covingtons, the Eric Gordons, the you name it. They had all these 3-point shooters who could sit around the perimeter, and then you had one guy in the middle who did all the rebounding. It just obviously never worked out for D'Antoni or the Houston Rockets, which is why they parted ways. The problem is they're left with all the remnants of the D'Antoni era, minus Robert Covington, and they have no direction. I think my biggest issue with the Houston Rockets is they were not able to unload their star talent for any sort of direction facing future. There's nothing that should point to any sort of positivity from the standpoint that the front office knows exactly what they're doing. I just can't understand what the Houston Rockets are trying to get accomplished here. That being said, I think that they have a lot that can still get done. I also had them as a loser in this scenario. So I think that overall, they still can make the jump. It just depends on, does James Harden and Russell Westbrook get traded before the trade deadline? I think that's the tentative hold I have on them being labeled losers right now.
Yeah, and then the final loser of the offseason, the Indiana Pacers. I mean, they had one job, one goal for this offseason, and that was to get Gordon Hayward. And they completely failed. They fell on their face. They couldn't come to a deal with Danny Ainge for a sign and trade. I mean, it was such a miss. You were wanted to move on from Miles Turner. He's not going to be there. He's not your future, and you have no pieces around him. I mean, Danny Ainge was asking for a little bit more in return, and you said absolutely not. If you want Gordon Hayward that bad, then it's worth it. So I don't understand what the Indiana Pacers were doing. And then with the failed sign-in trade, with the failed deal, they did nothing. This is a team that is going to go nowhere. They have no plans for the future. They have no stars besides Miles Turner. What is Indiana doing? I mean, they want to end. They're kind of turning into the New York Jets of the NBA, where they're going to be a bottom of the barrel team for the next few years, and with no direction. The Indiana Pacers make no sense.
Yeah, the one positive thing I'll give to the Boston Celtics was that they were able to get one thing out of this Gordon Hayward situation, is that they got a $28.5 million trade exception, which is the highest in NBA history, meaning that they cleared $28.5 million in tradable cap space that they can bring on another massive contract from another team. So if you're looking at some of these veterans that are not in good favor with the teams that they're on, or they're not going to make the playoffs when they thought they were, the Celtics can take on one of those players with no issue whatsoever. That being said, to bring it back to Indiana, Indiana didn't want to give up Victor Oladipo and Doug McDermott along with Miles Turner. They wanted to give up one or the other, preferably Doug McDermott. And by not working with Danny on a way to get all three to Boston in exchange for basically the trove of first round picks that Danny Ainge acquired from the Kyrie Irving and or not Kyrie Irving for the Paul Pierce Nets trade and the Kyrie Irving trades. I think that essentially what they were given was a whole lot of garbage, and Indiana should have made the deal. If you're because they were looking to get rid of Victor Oladipo anyway. They weren't looking to hold on to him. They just wanted to get him off in a separate deal. So the fact remains that if you're going to try to ship him off anyway, you take a little less to get the player that you wanted. Not only did you not get the player that you wanted, but he went to the Charlotte Hornets, who have gotten much stronger, and he wanted to come to your team. He wanted to get that done, and you just couldn't get it done. I think that this is a completely failed experiment across the board for the Pacers, and they need to be ashamed of themselves. And it's rumored that the Miles Turner trade still may happen with the Celtics, even without Gordon Hayward. I'm not exactly sure what the Celtics would be giving up at that point in time. That's a different discussion for another time. But if that happens, I think they drop to the number one loser of the offseason, because if you still trade Miles Turner to the Celtics, didn't get Gordon Hayward, I don't exactly understand what you were trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess in Indiana with no direction in sight.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Completely agree. Yeah, no, for sure. But I have three NBA offseason losers of my own, and I'm just gonna run through them quickly. First, the entire NBA. The entire NBA lost. Why did the entire NBA lose, Mike? Because the Lakers got stronger. They just wiped the floor with the entire NBA in the bubble and throughout the postseason, and then they got stronger. They added Sixth Man of the Year Montrezl Harrell. They got a younger, slightly better version of Rajon Rondo in Dennis Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Marc Gasol, who's a stretch five. What? And then obviously they're going to re-sign Anthony Davis. Like, it's a foregone conclusion. I don't think anybody's really concerned about that at the moment. So you're telling me that the best team in basketball weakened their biggest competition in the conference and got better along the way? How in the hell should everybody in the NBA should just be like, are you effing kidding me? Like, what are we supposed to be doing here?
It's not really a competition anymore. I mean,
they're just buying it. They're buying their way to the finals.
Yeah, and it's players. It's a lot of these veterans who are saying, "Hey, we'll take a team friendly deal to go get an easy ring."
Yeah, easy. They don't care what their quote unquote legacy becomes. Yeah, I mean, Marc Gasol already has a ring in Toronto. You have Montrezl Harrell, who's been on he's been on plenty of losing teams in his career. Dennis Schroeder hasn't seen what a win looks like in a long time. I think that you get all these players that can fill certain roles for you. You got so much stronger, and now you're just going to wreak havoc on the entire NBA. I don't know how anybody but the Lakers wins in the offseason with the way they conducted themselves. Specifically Montrezl Harrell. I'm very angry with him. I want to speak to him and his mother. The Boston Celtics are my second loser. Now, I am a huge Celtics fan. I mean, hello. I love Boston. But the Celtics botched a whole hell of a lot this offseason. Just to give you an idea of what they went through is the fact that they botched the Miles Turner trade with Indiana by not getting that done. Whether it was their fault or Indiana's, doesn't matter. They both lose, right? By not getting that done, both teams lose. They lose Gordon Hayward for literally nothing. You can tell me that they got that 28.5 million trade exception, the fact remains that 80% or almost 80% of trade exceptions are actually not used. And if you're telling me even if they have the most, who are they going to be bringing in that is going to be worth that amount of money to help this roster and not damage the camaraderie that they already have built? Outside of somebody like Blake Griffin, and who's not going to be dealt, I really don't understand exactly what they're going to be using this room for. On top of that, you got Tristan Thompson, who, again, is an outmoded center. I don't think he's really all that great. I think he was a great piece around LeBron James, but you bring Tristan Thompson and Kendall Jenner to Boston. There's just a whole hell of a lot of nothing going on in Boston. I think the team got weaker by losing Gordon Hayward, and they didn't do anything to really give me a lot of satisfaction as a fan moving forward. I like their draft picks in Aaron Nesmith and
Peyton
Pritchard. Those were really good, but we have to see that game translate to the NBA. They were great in college. Let's see what they can do moving forward. There's still a lot of questions that I have with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, it was definitely a very disappointing offseason for the Celtics, but I think there's a little bit of upside with their draft picks, and I think Tristan Thompson he's an upgrade over Enes Kanter, so I think that this team is getting some height and some offensive help that is going to help them improve. And I think these rookies definitely have a spot on the roster, and I think they're going to help them down the stretch. I think that they're going to help them off the bench, give them some help. I really think that these two are going to fit the system well. So that's why I don't have them as a loser in this draft or in this offseason. I think that there is a little bit more upside than a lot of the other teams that had off seasons.
Yeah, I would also say that the one upside to Boston's offseason was getting the max extension deal done with Jason Tatum. I think that was a big issue looming over their heads. They got a 5-year, $195 million deal done with Jason Tatum. They lock him up for the best part of his career, essentially, and they made some other moves. Again, they didn't stand out to me all that much, but the fact remains that I'll be interested to see, outside of this Jason Tatum and Tristan Thompson move, whether the Celtics can utilize their trade exception to go after a player maybe like Bradley Beal or I don't know, you name it. I really don't know who else to go after.
Right.
But we'll see. And then my final loser that I have here is kind of an interesting one. It's another player like I had for the winners, but I have Trevor Ariza.
Oh, this is sad. This is just sad.
It's just sad, man. Just to give you an idea, Trevor Ariza, if you're listening to this by some
grace of God,
just sit at home and wait for the dust to settle before you try looking for an apartment anywhere. Maybe just a thought. In less than a week, Ariza has been on four different NBA teams as part of various trades. First, he was with the Portland Trailblazers, who dealt Ariza and 2 first-round picks to the Houston Rockets for Robert Covington. Then the Rockets traded Ariza and a first-round pick to Detroit as part of a sign-and-trade with Wood. Then Detroit shipped Ariza to the Thunder. He has an expiring contract worth $12.8 million. So he gives teams the ability to lose a contract at the end of this coming season if they're looking to continue to build and refresh their roster and whatnot. On top of the fact that he's a good player. I mean, $12.8 million for Trevor Ariza is not bad at all. I think he belongs on a championship contending team. He can definitely fill a role as a bench 3, a good swing forward that can help you as much as humanly possible. But I just feel bad for Trevor Ariza, man. I think that he needs to figure out exactly where he's going to be best utilized and then look for apartments there. But I just don't think he's in the final destination. I don't think the Thunder is exactly where he's going to stay, and I'll be interested to see where he moves going forward.
Yeah, with all these moves, it makes him look like he's an average player at best when he's a great forward. I mean, he still can offer a contending team some depth that's going to help them against other playoff teams. So, like, I agree with you. He's definitely not in his final destination this season. And I think it's going to work out for him. I think he's going to land in a better spot where he'll be better utilized and a scheme that will fit him much better than where he's at. So, keep the hope up, Trevor Ariza. This isn't the end for you. And, the grass is greener on the other side.
Hopefully. Breaking news, Trevor Ariza traded again.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our winners and losers. Just so you guys know, the NBA, the 2020-21 season will start on December 11th. That's when the first preseason games start. They go from December 11th to December 19th. The entire preseason schedule has been announced. Every team has a different amount of games. There's a minimum. Certain teams have 2 games, some have 3, some have 4. The max is 4, the minimum is 2. And then on December 22nd is when the first half of the regular season will begin. The first half is going to be just a regular schedule, normal amount of games. Then they're going to break March 4th. The All-Star break will be March 5th to March 10th. And then starting on March 11th to May 16th will be the second half of the regular season. That's when the rest of the game, the 72 games, again, we are shortened by 10. Normally an 82 game season, we're shortened by 10 this year to make up for lost time from last year's bubble situation. And then on top of that, in May 18th to 21, you have the play-in tournament. So you have the 10 seed and 9 seed playing each other, and the 8 seed and 7 seed playing each other, and then there's a bracket for those two. Then they will play, the winners of those will play each other, and then that's who will take on the 7th and 8th seed. So a little different situation moving forward. And then May 22nd is to July 22nd will be the NBA playoffs. So the NBA has their entire league structure set out. They have built-in plans for COVID-related situations. This is the NBA's first swing at a non-bubble season, the way they're going to go about this. Stay tuned. December 1st, they're going to release more information about the schedule and how this is all going to work. We will be on top of it. We will tweet out everything that you need to know. We're going to get all that information out to you as soon as we get word from the league. With that being said, I think that we have covered absolutely everything that we have missed over the last 2 weeks with the NBA, and I think we should put this to rest and move forward to the NFL. All right, so the NFL is in a very interesting state right now. Before we get to all of the issues that have gone on in the last few days, weeks, months, whatever, I want to get to an interesting game. For those of you who watched either on NFL Red Zone or got this game on CBS, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay Bucks was one of the most hyped up games that I've had in a long time. I was ready to see Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown versus Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman and Sammy Watkins and Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, these defenses going at it. And then all of a sudden, it became the Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes show. Tyreek Hill blows the doors off of the Buccaneers defense because for some odd reason, Snapchat himself, who's the defensive coordinator for the
Todd Bowles? Wait,
Todd Bowles.
hold on. You're telling me there was a defense out there? Wait,
I mean, apparently.
where? I didn't see one. Were they wearing camouflage? Were they wearing
There's evidence from Alex Jones that they might have been holograms. But the fact remains that the fact remains that they decided to play man defense on cover one scheme on Tyreek Hill and all of these speedy receivers with Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy Bunting and whoever else
Carlton
that they
Davis.
threw out there. Yeah. I mean, these corners are not meant to keep up with Tyreek Hill in one-on-one situations. Yet they didn't learn their lesson the first time, nor the second time, nor the third time. In fact, Tyreek Hill ended with 13 catches, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 15 targets. 15 targets, 13 catches, 269 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He scored 60 fantasy points. Congratulations if you had him in fantasy, by the way. You won your league just with him. Not your game, not your week, your league. You win the league. Congratulations, you won.
I just don't understand how this is possible. I think Todd Bowles, he was like, all right, I've heard this guy Tyreek Hill's pretty good. And then he looked him up and he was like, he was drafted in 2016. Oh, wait, he was a 5th round pick? Oh, he must not be that good. All right, this is an easy matchup. Okay, all right, so we'll just run man coverage on everybody and we'll be fine. Our pass rush will get there. We won't have to worry about anybody. Oh, wait, this guy runs a sub 4.3 40. Oh, he can juke around anybody and get past anybody he wants at any point. Oh, and then it's Patrick Mahomes, who can throw any pass he wants whenever he wants. Travis Kelce, the best tight end in football. Sammy Watkins, still one of the... Yeah, tight end, wide receiver playing tight end. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the best rookie running back. I mean... This is coaching at its worst, at its lowest point for Tampa Bay. I don't care about those games against New Orleans. Those were bad. This was a train wreck. This was you getting your ass handed to you for 60 minutes. I mean, this was so bad. This was hard to watch. To know how many Pro Bowlers, how many elite players are on that Tampa Bay team. And it's all going to waste because you have Todd Bowles as your defensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, the great quarterback Byron Leftwich as your offensive coordinator.
Don't do that to Byron Leftwich.
And Bruce Arians as your head coach. Yeah. These guys really have it under control.
My issue is that the fact remains that Tom Brady, he did lead a comeback. There's
only so much one man can do. There's only so much. I mean,
the Buccaneers were able to stop them in the second half. I think they learned a lot. And they only lost by 3 points. But the fact remains the damage was done. Tyreek Hill ran all over you and pieced out the entire way to the end zone 3 different times. There's no excuse for playing one-on-one man coverage against Tyreek Hill with no safety over the top.
But there's a reason that every other team that plays the Kansas City Chiefs is 10 yards off of him at all times. Because you don't get...
they at least press him at the line and have somebody else who's going to take the coverage over the top.
The number one priority is to not get beat over the top by anybody, especially Tyreek Hill, because it's so easy for him.
Beat me with Travis Kelce underneath. I'll give you the underneath every time. I have a feeling I'll be able to stop you over time.
Yeah, I mean, you have great linebackers in Levante David and Devin Bush and Devin White. Sorry. I mean, let them do their work. Let them handle Travis Kelce. They can do that. Take everybody else and cover Tyreek Hill. I don't care if Mecole Hardman's open. Frankly, I don't even care if Sammy Watkins or Demarcus Robinson's open.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, Patrick Mahomes had a great day. He had 462 yards on 37 completions.
Yeah, well, I mean,
which is it? It's a Patrick
great.
Mahomes game.
Yeah, it's great.
Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they've all had games like this, but they've not any of those guys have had Tyreek Hill or anybody like him who can go 269 yards as a receiver. Not like that's not all-purpose yards. That is strictly receiving yards on 13 catches. Do you know what his average catch was? 20.7 yards. 20.7 yards per catch. He had a long of 75 because it was a one-play touchdown from the 25-yard line.
I think he could have run all the way to the 1 yard line, run all the way back to the other 1 yard line, and run back for the touchdown without being touched.
It's like how you waste time and gain yards in Madden.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. He is a real life cheat code. He is a glitch. He is unfair. He is point blank. Dare I say, the best wide receiver in football?
Well, I guess that begs the question: Is Tyreek Hill the best wide receiver in football today?
Without a doubt. Absolutely, without a doubt, the best wide receiver in football. I look at DK Metcalf. I look at DeAndre Hopkins. I look at Michael Thomas. These are guys who are better than most. They have height. They have speed. They have route running ability. They have great catching ability. They are not Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill doesn't have just speed. He has cheetah speed. They call him Cheetah for a reason, because he is the fastest land animal out there. He runs past everybody with ease. He glides. I mean, I don't know if you remember last year when the running back, I forget who it was for the Chiefs, broke off a 90-yard touchdown, and he outran him just because he could. He led the way with nobody in front of him just because he's faster than him. I mean, this is a guy who has unreal speed. He has speed that you only see in the Olympics, and he is doing it with ease every single time. He is, without a doubt, the most uncoverable wide receiver in football. He has given everybody so much trouble since he's entered the league. There is no answer for him. People have tried. Usually it takes people a year, maybe 2 at most. It's been 4. It's been 4 years, and no one's been able to figure it out.
It's pain. Pain is all we know. Yeah, well, not to mention that you kind of glossed over it earlier. This man was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
This man was a 5th-round pick. Not only was he a 5th-round pick, he was the second receiver taken by the Chiefs in that draft. The first wide receiver they took, Demarcus Robinson. That's how much this guy, like, pure speed wins. And that's why Mecole Hardman went as high as he did, because the Chiefs wanted to double up on the speed factor. We're talking about Tyreek Hill, ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. A 4.29.
And people want to call DK Metcalf fast running a 4.35. He might as well be as fast as Tom Brady at that point. I mean, Tyreek Hill's going to run laps around him. Not only does Tyreek Hill have amazing straight line speed, his game speed is way beyond anybody else's. The way his route running isn't that polished, but because he has such speed, it happens in an instant. If you blink, you miss it. If you make one mistake, the slightest mistake, he will make you pay for it. And he has Patrick Mahomes, who can put the ball anywhere he wants. So as long as Tyreek Hill has an inch of separation, that ball's getting to him, and he will break off and run for a touchdown every single time. This man is unfair. He needs to be taken care of. I'm not saying he needs to be taken out, but he needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. Yes. a little 5'10", 185-pound receiver coming out of West Alabama should not be giving everybody this amount of trouble, but the fact remains that speed kills, especially in the game of football. And if you ever wanted to know what Usain Bolt on a football field would look like, just look at number 10 with the Kansas City Chiefs. He is all you need. My question is Tyreek Hill, does Tyreek Hill make Patrick Mahomes, or does Patrick Mahomes make Tyreek Hill? And let me preface it by saying this. Do you think Tyreek Hill has the same amount of success if he has Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, who is the most average vanilla quarterback you can find? And that in lies my issue with your sentiment that he's the best receiver in football. Because if I gave Michael Thomas or Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins to Kirk Cousins, I think he could do a hell of a lot more than what Tyreek Hill can do. Tyreek Hill is made possible from the simple fact that Patrick Mahomes can launch a football 80 yards with the snap of a finger and not look like he's doing anything important.
It's kind of the impossible question to answer because it's not just Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. It's Andy Reid's system. I mean, it's the way it's structured. It's Eric Bieniemy, the way he designs plays. This guy is a genius when it comes to scheming up offensive plays.
Look at the goal line play that they ran against the Bucks in this one specifically. Yeah. They had Patrick Mahomes, who was lined up in the shotgun. He moves over to the left, walks behind between the guard and the tackle on the left side. Then he starts sprinting across the field, catches the snap mid-sprint, pitches it to Tyreek Hill, who's coming back on a backward crosser, right? He's coming backward, who pitches it back to Travis Kelce, who's then looking for an open receiver in Patrick Mahomes. I've audibly said when I watched that play, what the hell am I watching? Because whoever is designing these plays, whoever is thinking on a level much higher than most any NFL coach can comprehend. And the fact remains that Todd Bowles was given way more than he can handle. He bit off way more than he can chew with this position. And the Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy literally toyed with him all day long.
I want to bring it back to this one final point. Tom Brady is still good. He is still a top 10 quarterback in the league. This team is the best team on paper in the league. There's no reason that they should be as bad as they are. What are they, 7-5, I believe? Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael.
7-5.
7-5.
3-3 at home.
Fire Bruce Arians, fire Byron Leftwich, and fire Todd Bowles. These guys don't belong here. They cannot handle elite players. They cannot handle being at the NFL level. They cannot handle being coaches at any level, frankly. There's a reason Bruce Arians was retired. There's a reason that he's not with Arizona anymore. There's a reason that Indianapolis did not hire him long term. He is not good. He is not good, and it's a trickle-down effect. He hires bad coaches. Byron Leftwich, a failed quarterback, a terrible quarterback. He was better when he had a broken leg in Jacksonville. I mean, this guy is so bad. He does not design a play that goes less than 20 yards down the field. Tom Brady has thrown more deep balls this 1 year than he has in the last 20. Tom Brady has thrown almost more interceptions this year than he ever has in another season. And we still have another 5 weeks to go. True. Bruce Arians is making Tom Brady look terrible.
I don't think Bruce Arians is necessarily the entirety of the blame here or his coaching staff.
It starts with the coach.
It definitely starts there. But I want to put some blame on Tom Brady here because he knew Bruce Arians has not changed from when he was in Pittsburgh to when he went to Arizona. Everywhere he's been, he has had a vertical passing attack that stretches the field. It's always pushing the ball down the field there. It's never the check down route. It's rarely running the ball. It is constantly throwing. Tom Brady knew this when he chose to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is partially on him because knowing that he wasn't going to have Josh McDaniels calling the plays anymore.
He was forced in. No, he was forced into the situation. No one else wanted him. No one else wanted Tom Brady. There was no other options.
True. The Las Vegas Raiders were welcoming him with open arms. He chose to go to Tampa Bay.
Because on paper it's a better situation until you realize
would have loved them back too.
Until you realize that Bruce Arians is controlling this team. He is driving this team into the ground, and he is the reason they have lost so many games. This team should have no more than 2 losses on the season. This was a very winnable game. It's all because of Bruce Arians and his coordinators why this game was lost.
Again, I don't think it's all because of Bruce Arians. I think that there's a lot of blame to go around here. Again, Todd Bowles playing single high coverage man-to-man defense on Tyreek Hill, allowing him to go for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns on 13 catches is not necessarily an enviable position to put your quarterback in. On top of the fact that your offensive line, which was once a top 5 offensive line, even as early as this season, is no more. The interior of the offensive line is getting destroyed by mid to top tier defensive lines.
Because you can't coach up your players.
It's not just about coaching, though. It's about the talent.
Are you kidding?
Him.
Go look at the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. Do you know half of them? A lot of them are either no-name players that have been turned into people or washed up players from other teams that have been turned into decent offensive linemen. They have done a great job against that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive front. There is no reason that Tom Brady should have been hurried and knocked down 5 times as much as Patrick Mahomes. The numbers are ridiculous. The coaching is so abysmal that it's hurting this team. It's costing them game after game after game.
All right.
They have a bye.
Get your last point in because I want to finish up this segment and then we can move forward.
You have a bye coming up this week. Take this week to fire your coaches. Get an interim coach. I don't care if it's Todd Bowles. I don't care. Get Bruce Arians out of there. He is hurting this team. Get rid of Byron Leftwich. Let Tom Brady be the offensive coordinator. He knows exactly how to run an offense. Let him do it. He'll get you wins. Get Byron out of there. Get Bruce out of there. Their time in Tampa needs to be over.
All right. Just as my final words, they're not going to fire Bruce Arians. It's just not going to happen.
Because they're stupid.
Jason Light will never fire Bruce Arians, especially halfway through the first year. They're sitting in a great spot to make the playoffs and
a great spot. They're like the 6th seed right now out of 7. This team is not performing as well as I think you think they are.
Doesn't matter. They have room to improve, and they just lost to the 10-1 Kansas City Chiefs, who, basically only lost because the Oakland Raiders just ran crazy plays against them and whatever. It doesn't matter. The fact remains that they lost to a very talented team. And I think that they have the opportunity now to go back to the drawing board and take a look at where they took their lumps and they can move forward. I don't think it's all over for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think there's plenty of blame to go around, but it all starts with getting back to the basics. And I think that they need to run the ball more. I think they need to possess the clock more. They need to, they need to utilize more shallow crossing routes. They need to utilize more of the horizontal side of the field, push, second and third and short. Don't be afraid to get to third down. I mean, that's my biggest issue.
Can I nominate you to be the offensive coordinator? Because I want to. Because you're better than Byron Leftwich.
It's not that hard to figure out. And
Tell them that.
I understand that, but we've had this discussion, and I know it angered you to no end when they
Yes,
said
because you're ruining Tom Brady.
no, but it angered you when Bruce Arians said that the Rams beat them because they
Oh,
were too
that was
scared to run a pass play more than 10 yards downfield, which is exactly what they should be doing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady is not Patrick Mahomes. He is not Phillip Rivers back in circa 2016. He is not any of these just launch it quarterbacks who thrives in a vertical passing game. He needs to have check down routes. He needs shallow crossers. He needs seam routes. He needs players that can get open, not necessarily by themselves, but the routes that can cause people to get open, not just 10-yard hitches and 10-yard out routes that are going to possibly gain separation. I think that there's a lot of issues here that Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, and Byron Leftwich need to sit down and work through before they can become the team that we all expect them to be. All right. Before Nick has a heart attack, I think it's time to move forward. With that being said, this was by far and away one of the most entertaining games that we've had in week 11, in week 12. But we were expected to have one of the most entertaining games this year happen on Thursday night. That was the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. And then it came out that the Baltimore Ravens, starting last Sunday, lost Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins to positive COVID-19 tests. On top of that fact, throughout the rest of the week, they continued to lose players left and right, totaling over 20 players now on the COVID reserve list from positive tests, not just because in close contact, they were all positive tests, and 5 staffers. This all stemming from the fact that the Baltimore Ravens strength and conditioning coach blatantly disregarded the protocols. I'll let Nick get into exactly what happened, to a point that caused these players and staffers to test positive. This caused the NFL to have to move the Thanksgiving primetime game, which is a huge, huge moneymaker for the league, to Sunday, and then again to Tuesday, because the positive tests have happened every day continually since then. On top of that, the Denver Broncos lost all of their quarterbacks because they were in close contact with quarterback Jeff Driscoll, who tested positive. Those quarterbacks did not wear masks while they were in the quarterback room. The league ruled them out, and that required, I believe, what was his name? Hinton? Kendrell Hinton, the former quarterback at Wake Forest for 1 year in 2016. He was the one that they had to start at quarterback this week against the New Orleans Saints, the number 1 seed in the NFC. Nick, do you want to go through exactly what the Ravens strength and conditioning coach did?
Yeah, if you ever thought that it can't be one person to ruin the NFL for everybody, guess again, because the strength and conditioning coach for the Ravens is doing just that. Not only did he remove his bracelet that has his tracking device for when they are around players and around people so they can track you in case you're in close contact with somebody that tests positive, he also allowed more than the occupancy allows in the weight room at a time, and nobody was wearing a face mask. Now you have 20 players that are testing positive for COVID. You have over 10 personnel testing positive for COVID, and we're not even done. This game has been pushed back twice so far, and it's all because of this one guy.
So the reason that I brought up the Broncos on top of bringing up the Ravens is this. We have to have a very candid discussion about the NFL and how I believe, and Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but how I believe that the NFL has failed during this COVID pandemic, how they have not protected players, not protected personnel, how they have not done anything right, essentially, to get these players and coaches in line as far as, protecting them from the pandemic is concerned. They moved the Steelers-Ravens game from Thursday to Sunday to Tuesday. The Broncos asked the league if they could move their Sunday game to Monday because they were not going to have any quarterbacks on the roster, and the league said no because they didn't care. My biggest issue is that the league is playing favorites. They're playing with NFL rosters. They are playing with playoff standings. They're playing with lots of money. They have a lot of issues, and this is what I want. This is everything that transpired over the weekend that I just want everybody to understand. I tweeted this out on Saturday. I want you guys to understand. Baltimore versus Pittsburgh had been moved to Tuesday. Baltimore versus Dallas for Week 13 was a Thursday night football game. That has now been moved. The Ravens have over 20 players and 5 staffers on the COVID reserve list. The Steelers have 1 player, running back James Conner, who is a cancer survivor, testing positive for COVID-19. The Broncos were forced to send every quarterback on the roster home for close contact with Jeff Driscoll, who tested positive. Oh, and by the way, Santa Clara County prohibited all contact sports until December 21st, forcing the league to relocate the Week 13 Buffalo versus San Francisco matchup. And now they have to find the San Francisco 49ers a place to practice. If you recall, earlier in the season, I called for some sort of bubble program, some sort of getting the team in a hotel and housing them away from their families and everything. And, maybe if the families test negative, allowing them to come visit, so on and so forth, something. My biggest issue is that the NFL had an entire offseason. Now, mind you, the Super Bowl ended in February. Lockdowns and COVID didn't start hitting until March. Okay, so they were already in their offseason when it started. They had the entire length of their offseason to come up with some plan, some sort of backup plan, some sort of way to get through this while having the sport of football being played. And they did absolutely nothing. Roger Goodell sat on his fucking ass and did absolutely nothing. He ought to be ashamed of himself, and the NFL owners should get together and seriously consider ousting him as the commissioner of the NFL. The fact remains that he put NFL players and their safety at risk by being so negligible at his job, by not taking the proper procedures and protocols that they need to get these players safe. In the practice facility, outside the practice facility, doing whatever it takes. The NBA set up a bubble system by spending money and going to Disney and saying, we're going to utilize your campus. Major League Baseball struck deals with specific teams in specific areas that allowed them to have hub cities that they would play baseball in. The NFL said, we're going to go on as usual and just hope for the best. How negligible and how asinine do you have to be to utilize such an improper way of thinking, to just understand that you just don't give a shit about the people that are playing your game? I mean, he makes his $35+ million a year sitting in his ivory tower, planting his ass in a comfy ass chair and just demanding the world from these players. They're the ones that have to go out there and do this. And some of these players putting their health at risk for all of us, because again, while it's a sport, it's still entertainment, right? This is how they get paid. This is what they do, but it's entertainment nonetheless. We all need to take part in this, and Roger Goodell just doesn't give a shit.
No, and he doesn't care, because it doesn't matter whether the season happens or not. He gets paid. He gets paid more than any player in the NFL. He's getting paid almost $60 million a year to do absolutely nothing. He sits there and he thinks of ways to hurt teams that have no that will not help the team or help the league market any better than they are. If it's not Lamar Jackson, if it's not Patrick Mahomes, then you mean nothing to me. That's his thinking. The Denver Broncos, they're not a playoff team. No. So why am I going to help them? They did something wrong. So why should they be given some assistance? Oh, Lamar Jackson might miss a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We can't let that happen. All right, let's figure out the best possible solution to get him into this game, or at least make it as competitive as possible. That way we get as many viewers as possible to watch this game. If this was Patrick Mahomes, it would have been the same thing. If this was even, I don't even know, Ben Roethlisberger, any of the Super Bowl contending teams, this would have been done for. Because that's what draws the biggest crowd. That's what brings in the money. That's all he cares about, is the bottom line. And you're putting these teams at risk. You're putting these players at risk. They have to go out there no matter what and put their bodies on the line each and every play. It could totally be due to one of these, Roger Goodell's decision making, that could cost somebody their season. If Kendrell Hinton goes out there, throws a bad pass, and it causes Noah Fant to get chop blocked or get taken out at the knees, and he tears his ACL, well, that's due to Roger Goodell. If it happens to Jerry Jeudy or Tim Patrick, it's due to Roger Goodell. But
don't forget, they forced the New England Patriots to go play the Kansas City Chiefs without Stephon Gilmore and without Cam Newton, because we all know the history that Roger Goodell has with Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots. But then the Tennessee Titans, they were given a week to do whatever they needed to get done against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been shafted more than any other team in this league. And I can't imagine that the Rooney family is willing to put up with much more without going to Goodell and seriously, or going to the other owners and seriously considering ousting him from his position. Because the fact remains, his lack of effort and his lack of decision-making has put the entire league and the players at risk of failing this season and possibly getting sick and being part of this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, and to save the Ravens even more, the NFL is still looking at canceling this game altogether, which means not only does the Baltimore Ravens not get paid, everybody for the Pittsburgh Steelers loses a game check as well. Everybody, and so it doesn't matter if you do everything right, you can still get penalized to the nth degree because somebody else made a mistake, didn't want to follow protocol, had completely blatant disregard for the rules. You're the one who has to get in trouble for it.
It's absolutely abysmal. And it goes back to, some of the rules that they put in place that made, so everybody scratched their head. I remember listening to Adam Schefter even, who was openly questioning what Roger Goodell was putting out there, saying, the fact that you can't exchange jerseys after football games because it's an increased risk of COVID. Well, most of those jerseys are from the people that were hitting each other. So most of the, germs and saliva and blood that they're going to be getting is their own. I can't imagine why that needs to be a rule. And the biggest, the biggest prohibitive factor that they put out there is a little doorway that sprays you with some sort of, cleaning solution or some sort of antibacterial solution. Give me a fucking break. That is not going to help the slightest. Now, obviously a lot of you don't know a lot about Nick and I, but our father deals with this very heavily. This is exactly what he works on. And speaking with him over the holiday, he scoffed at the fact that what the NFL is doing, and he said that they should be shut down immediately. And I agree. And that's coming from somebody who works in health and safety. when we look at it from a fan's perspective, I almost tend to agree. I don't want to see any of these players, as much as I can't stand some of them. I don't want to see any of them get sick. I don't want to see any of them put in harm's way for an entertainment purpose. But I also don't want to see them lose money and lose game checks. I mean, not only are you taking games away, but if this affects the playoffs, you're taking playoff bonuses away. You're taking performance bonuses away. You're taking Super Bowl bonuses away. You're taking away a lot of money away from these players. And I understand that the league is at risk of losing a lot of money as well. But the fact remains that you had an entire offseason to come up with different solutions, and you did fucking nothing. And this is on you, Roger Goodell. This is absolutely 1,000% on you and your office for not being able to get a goddamn thing done.
I think it's safe to say that Rob Manfred is leaps and bounds a better commissioner than Roger Goodell.
Which is sad because he called his trophy a piece of metal.
I think the last question I have is, should the NFL even try to think of creating a bubble situation moving into the playoffs?
1,000%. There is no way that they shouldn't be able to do this.
Well, okay, let me rephrase. Will they think about creating a bubble situation for the playoffs?
1,000% no, they will not think about doing it, because the fact remains that, again, Roger Goodell sits on his fucking ass and does absolutely nothing all day, every day. Instead, he decides to hand out fines for something that happened in October that had no bearing on a game whatsoever, or docking seventh round picks from teams because they had one player test positive for COVID-19. I mean, his job, the way he does his job is so abysmal. I mean, if he were to lose his job, he would be the only person that I would cheer for to never get a paycheck again.
You said it earlier, and I want to state it now. I hope Roger Goodell steps on the sharpest edge of a Lego every day for the rest of his life to know the pain and suffering that he puts us through. This man sucks at his job as much as Bruce Arians sucks at his. Get rid of them. This league is in shambles because of these guys. The owners need to do the right thing, come together, and find a replacement for Roger Goodell, because anybody is better.
I hope Roger Goodell's wife makes him an amazing meal. I hope it's a nice, fresh meal right out the oven. And I hope he burns the roof of his mouth so he can't taste it. Yeah, that's right. I said it. I put that on you.
Roger Goodell is such an abomination of a human being, not even an NFL commissioner. A human being. He has no decency for human life, for the people that he's putting at risk. He cares about the bottom line, and his bottom line is failing anyway. So, Roger Goodell, I just don't know how you wake up every day, look yourself in the mirror, and think you're doing a good job. Maybe we should start taking your checks away.
Maybe. I'd be for that. All right. Well, I hate to leave on that note, but the fact remains that, this was a conversation that needed to be had, a conversation that needs to continue to be had until something is done about Roger Goodell and his lack of accountability when it comes to the COVID-19 protocols, or lack thereof, that he has implemented for the NFL and their teams. With that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Enjoy everything that you guys get to witness and watch. I hope you guys get to spend some time with your friends and family. Stay safe, stay healthy, respect each other, love each other, and we will catch you next week. Peace and love, baby.